I wasn't planning on making a video tonight as I've been away for a little while, but how could I not after that amazing game one between the Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder? That might have been one of the best games, maybe like it might just be the best game I've ever watched live because that game had everything: clutch shot making, dominant performances, Dylan Harper, defense from Caruso. Alex Caruso hit 8 threes. MVP Shea's first game after winning MVP. It was an absolutely amazing game. And I know a lot of people were looking forward to this series, but this first game, I think, went above and beyond that. The rest of the series could be duds, and I'm still going to be a 10 out of 10 still for me because this game was just that good. And there's a couple of key talking points that I really wanted to get to and the reason why I want to make this video. The first one being Dylan Harper. That dude is a rookie. He is 20 years old. He is 3 years younger than me. And he just put up a 25, 10, 6, and 7 game. 7 steals. He almost had a quadruple double in his first game in the conference finals as a rookie. And some of the stuff he was doing out here was just unfair, right? Whenever he had AJ Mitchell on him, it was a mismatch. AJ Mitchell could not hang with Dylan Harper. He could not guard Dylan Harper. He was too physical, and he really couldn't do much. And one of the most impressive things with Dylan Harper was he did make a couple of boneheaded plays, right? And boneheaded in the sense where it's kind of like the offense isn't getting set. He's getting pressured by the defense. So what do? You don't have Fox. Stephon Castle, I think his decision making wasn't his decision making was good. He just lost the ball 11 times. He had 11 turnovers. Dylan Harper had 1 turnover, and he had a lot of touches this game, and he did amazing. This was a game that you dream of, right? To get from any type of player, not your 20-year-old rookie. And it's unfair that the Spurs have him. When he gets downhill, right, he is borderline unguardable. He is almost unstoppable. And then defensively, I never expected him to be as good as he is defensively. He's one of the best perimeter defenders on their team. And a lot of people coming into the draft said that that was his weakness. His motor was his weakness. And he's kind of showing that he's willing to do the dirty work. He's had multiple double-digit rebounding games so far in this playoffs. He was in those passing lanes like he was fucking Deion Sanders, interception after interception. And it was just a special rookie performance. And now let's get to the big elephant in the room. Victor Wembanyama is 22 years old. He just put up 41 points, 24 rebounds, 3 blocks. And this was a game where he didn't have as many blocks as he typically does. 3 blocks is still a lot, right? He had that 12 block game against Minnesota, but this game I think was infinitely more impressive on the defensive side than that 12 block game. And that's because he just completely, and I mean completely, shut down Oklahoma's entire offense whenever he was on the floor. There was a stat, I think partially through the third quarter, where it said when Wemby is on the floor, the Thunder were 16 of 50, and when he was off the floor in the Luke Cornett minutes, they were 10 for 16. His defense was it's on a completely different realm of understanding. Like, there's no amount of anything that you could do to justify what he does defensively because it is just that special. And in a game where you don't have De'Aaron Fox, your typical ball handler and your typical closer, he did such a great job of picking his shots and picking his moment. And when he took that 35-foot 3-pointer pull up in transition to tie the game, I was thinking, no, that's not the shot. And he hit that shit. And I went crazy because he is 7'5". He should not be able to do that, right? And he just hit that like it was nothing. And then he had so many clutch moments in this game, hitting that, one-legged runner. I think was it overtime? I forgot what it was. Again, I'm getting it confused, but he was so clutch time and time again. Stephon Castle did a great job in the overtime periods, getting the ball down low, I think they did a pretty bad job early on, the Spurs, in getting him the entry passes. They were just throwing it too low, and you can't do that against Oklahoma. They're physical. They'll bump you out the way to get to the ball, and that's what they were able to do. And credit to Oklahoma because they kept this one close, right? And on the side of the Spurs, big shout out to Devin Vassell. I don't think they win this game with Devin Vassell. He's not getting a ton of credit. His defense was incredible. He had 2 really big blocks. He had 2 momentum swinging 3-point shots as well. A big shout out to Devin Vassell. And now on Oklahoma City side, right? This was a game you kind of needed to win, in my opinion, because I don't know if you're ever going to get this type of role player performance that you did from Alex Caruso out of any single role player on your team. And especially in a series like this, where it seems like the Spurs have everything on lock, right? Caruso hit, let me just pull it up exactly. He hit 8 threes, and a couple of them came towards the end, right? A couple of his misses, I mean, not the made shots, towards the end. So he shot incredibly well, and I don't think you could. I know you can't rely on this type of performance again, right? And, when Shea goes out there and he shoots 7 for 23 and, he's struggling scoring the ball, I think his decision-making was fantastic today. He made a lot of right reads. I think he did get quite a bit sloppy in the overtime periods with a couple of turnovers where he's trying to kind of split the defense and stuff. He probably should have toned it down, kind of slowed it down, tried his best. I get it, though. He needs to get to his spots. In a game where Shea's shooting 7 for 23 and you get a role player performance like that from Caruso, you have to try and your best to win this game. You have to steal that game because it's going to be almost impossible to win games when Shea is 7 for 23, J-Dub is 11 for 25, and Chet Holmgren's basically a non-factor on offense. It's nigh impossible to win a game like that. And Alex Caruso really saved you from getting blown out, which very well could have happened if he doesn't hit 8 3-point shots. And a lot of this has to do with their offensive scheme, which just completely shifts when you have that 7'5" fucking monster on defense against you, right? Because Oklahoma City likes that short mid-range. They like getting into the paint, right? Shea's one of the best at getting to the paint and driving to the rim. And he just can't do that freely when you have Wembanyama on the floor. I know Caruso hit 8 threes, but I promise you, that 6, 7, and 8 3 that he hit, Wembanyama was not guarding him. Wembanyama said, fuck it, hit it. And he was in that paint. And you can't really rely on Caruso to make 8 threes. Imagine if, and the non-Caruso minutes were brutal, right? When Wemby's roaming off Dort or when Wemby's roaming off Kayson, right? It's brutal to see, the Thunder are going to struggle in that type of situation. And I think they just have to be better in the way they scheme. Mark Daigneault had a great offensive play call. I think it was an overtime or it was the end of regulation where he had that Iverson cut for Shea, where Wemby got drawn all the way to the right corner to guard Shea. It was an off-ball screen action where he was forced to switch. And then you had I forget if it was J-Dub or Shea. You had one of them Iverson cut to the rim, and it generated a quality look. But you can't really scheme that every time, right? You can't drop a scheme like that and hope for a bucket in the paint every single play because the Spurs are smart enough to understand Mitch Johnson is a good enough coach to outcoach that. And a lot of this comes down to tough shot making, right? I think the Spurs did a great job of hitting some tough shots, right? A couple of the Champagne and Vassell threes were tough. Vassell hit a couple tough middies. Dylan Harper, fuck, that kid is not a rookie. Wembanyama as well, right? But any shot for Wemby's not really a tough shot, and that's kind of where it all boils down to, right? At the end of the day, the Spurs can get a quality look pretty much any time they want to, right? And I think Oklahoma did a fantastic job of forcing turnovers, right? I don't think they capitalized as much as they needed to on the fast break, right? Because sometimes, like I said, Devin Vassell got back or sprinted back. Carter Bryant was fantastic. A lot of these Spurs defenders didn't give up. They did not give up on the play. And I think that's one of the biggest testaments to how, good this team is and how young they are. They're fighting. Now, what do I expect for the rest of this series? Oklahoma City is way too good of a team to not make adjustments, right? And one of the biggest things I saw, or I kind of took note of when watching this game, is I think they're far too stagnant. they are a little too stagnant when it comes to when Shea has the ball, right? And they do a good job of kind of falling back. Like, for example, Caruso takes the corner whenever Chet takes the roll, right? That's good. But you need to be able to get a switch, something advantageous for Chet. You gotta let Chet get down there, try and score too. Because Chet has Stephon on him sometimes. Chet has Dylan Harper on him sometimes, right? And Chet has to be able to punish them. And I think it's a big reliance on Chet and J-Dub in this series because the Spurs are doing a great job. Everybody but Shea, anyone but Shea, please score on us. And it's working. And for the Spurs, right, this game is such a big win, right? Because I can see this series now ending in 5, really, or 6. Like, I could see the series ending sooner than we all thought because this was not a game they should have won. It, with all like accounts and purposes, De'Aaron Fox was out, right? And then you're playing against MVP Shea in a game where Caruso hit 8 3-pointers. If you tell me that De'Aaron Fox was out and Alex Caruso had 8 3-pointers in a game, I'm telling you the Spurs lost that game. But they managed to win this game. And imagine when it kind of all comes back down to earth, right? And Caruso's not hitting 8 threes. I think you can be pretty happy with the outcomes of those games. But that's pretty much all I have. I just really wanted to highlight how good of a game this was. This was incredible to watch, and I can't wait for more.